In a peaceful village called Alera, a curious boy named Tunde lived with his widowed mother, Mama Ronke. Tunde was 10, with bright eyes full of questions and feet that could barely stay still. He loved chasing lizards, picking mangoes, and listening to village stories. But there was one story he always heard in whispers, the tale of Igila, the tree that eats people. One day, a boy named Sei went into the forest to fetch firewood. He never came back. At first, the villagers thought maybe he had lost his way. But as the sun set and the shadows deepened, worry settled over Alera like a thick blanket. His mother cried through the night. The next morning, people began to talk. At the stream, Mama Ronke heard Mama Ijeoma whisper, "It is the tree again. Igila has woken." Tunde's ears perked up. He had always thought the stories were just tales to scare children. But this felt different. That evening, Baba Musa, the village chief, called everyone to the square. "This is the third child in 10 years," he said, voice trembling. "We can no longer pretend. From today, no one must go near Igila. Anyone who disobeys will be punished." But Tunde was curious. His best friend Chidi whispered, "Do you think the tree is real?" "I want to find out," Tunde replied. That night, Tunde couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the forest, the missing boy, and the whisper of the tree's name on the wind. Deep down, he felt the tree wasn't just a tale. It was real, and it had woken up. Tunde convinced Chidi to go with him into the forest after school. Just to look, he promised. They packed snacks, a flashlight, and a slingshot, and sneaked out when no one was watching. As they entered the forest, the air grew cooler. The deeper they went, the quieter everything became. Even the birds seemed afraid to sing. After 20 minutes, they saw it, Igila. It was taller than any tree they'd seen. Its trunk was wide, roots thick like ropes, twisting above the ground. Its bark was black and rough, with strange marks that looked like eyes. The ground beneath it was dry and cracked. Unlike the rest of the forest, there were no insects, no leaves, just silence. Suddenly, a dry whisper floated through the air, "Tuan. D." They froze. Chidi grabbed Tunde's arm. "Let's go." But Tunde couldn't move. The tree called again, louder this time. Just then, a gust of wind blew past, and the tree creaked like old bones. Tunde felt something cold touch his neck. "Run!" Chidi shouted. They dashed out of the forest, stumbling and falling, hearts racing. At the edge of the village, they stopped, panting and shaking. Tunde looked back. The forest was still. That night, he had a dream. He stood before the tree. It bent low and whispered, "Come alone. Come if you want the truth." When he woke up, his goat Joe was dead near the forest. His mother's cooking pot shattered by itself. And on the doorstep, he found a dark leaf shaped like a hand. Written in the sand beneath it was one word, "Soon." Tunde knew he couldn't ignore the tree any longer. The signs were too many. The dreams, the dead goat, the strange leaf, they were all warnings. He tried to tell Chidi, but his friend avoided him. The fear was growing like a shadow over the village. Then one evening, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, there was a loud knock at the door. It was Uncle Deo, eyes wide with panic. "Chidi is missing," he said breathlessly. "He didn't come home after school." Tunde felt like the ground disappeared beneath his feet. The next day, the village gathered again in the square. Baba Musa looked tired and worried. "We can't deny it anymore. The tree is taking our children." People murmured in agreement. Tunde stepped forward, trembling. "Chidi and I went to the forest," he said. "We saw the tree. It spoke. It called my name." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "It has chosen you," Baba Musa said grimly. Mama Ronke began to cry. "No, he's just a child. He didn't know." But Baba Musa shook his head. "He may be a child, but he's the only one the tree speaks to. That means something." That night, Tunde couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the forest from afar. It looked quiet, peaceful even. But he knew better. The tree was waiting, and it had taken his best friend. He packed a small bag, water, flashlight, the slingshot, a pair of old beads his grandmother had given him for protection, and a charm hidden in his drawer. He left a note for his mother under his pillow. "I'm going to find Chidi. If I don't come back, I love you." As the first light touched the earth, he stepped into the forest alone. The forest was silent, not the kind of silence that made you calm, the kind that made your skin crawl. Tunde's heart pounded in his chest as he walked deeper and deeper into the trees. He knew the way, he had been there before, but it still felt unfamiliar, like the trees had shifted overnight. Birds were gone, the air was thick, the ground beneath his feet was dry and cracked. He walked until the twisted roots appeared. And then he saw it. Igila. The tree stood massive and still, like a sleeping giant, but Tunde knew it wasn't sleeping. It was awake, waiting. He stepped closer. "I'm here," he said softly. "You called me." The bark groaned. A low hum came from deep inside. The trunk split slowly down the middle. Inside was a glowing hollow. And there, in the middle of the hollow, was a shoe. Chidi's shoe. Tunde felt a rush of fear and anger. Chidi. He stepped into the tree. As Tunde stepped into the tree, a chill rushed over him. It was like walking into a different world. The air inside was thick and hot. The space was dark, too dark, even for his flashlight. The walls of the hollow tree were moist, pulsing slightly, as if the tree had a heartbeat. Roots hung like ropes from above. Some brushed his face. He almost turned back, but then he remembered the shoe. Chidi's shoe. He moved carefully, calling out, "Chidi, can you hear me?" There was no reply, only the sound of his footsteps echoing in the tight space. Then he heard something else. Breathing. Slow, heavy breathing. He followed the sound until he found Chidi, sitting against the wooden wall. His eyes were open but empty. He didn't blink. He didn't speak. He didn't even move. Tunde dropped beside him. "Chidi, it's me. Wake up, please." Chidi didn't answer. Then the tree groaned, and a deep voice echoed all around them. "He stays, unless you take his place." Tunde looked around wildly. "What do you mean? Let him go. The tree must feed. One must remain." Tunde's heart raced. He grabbed Chidi's hands. They were cold, but he wouldn't give up. "I won't leave him. I won't." Suddenly, the walls of the tree shook. Roots began to move, sliding across the floor like snakes. The tunnel behind them started to close. "Hold on, Chidi." Tunde pulled him, dragging him toward the exit. Roots lashed out. One struck Tunde's leg. He cried out but kept pulling. Just as the last gap of light narrowed, he pushed Chidi through and jumped after him. They fell to the forest floor, gasping. The tree let out a roar. Tunde looked over. Chidi blinked. Then he coughed. "Tunde, what happened?" Tunde hugged him. "You're back. I got you out." But before they could celebrate, the ground trembled. A deep, heavy sound came from the forest. Footsteps. Something was coming. The forest rustled unnaturally as the sound of the footsteps grew louder. Whatever was coming was big. The trees shook slightly, and birds flew away in frightened bursts. Tunde helped Chidi to his feet. They backed away from Igila. Then they saw it. A tall, shadowy figure with bark-like skin stepped into view. Its arms were long, ending in clawed fingers made of twisted wood. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. It growled deeply. "The Guardian," Chidi whispered. "The tree sent it after us." Tunde stood in front of Chidi, slingshot in hand, though he knew it would be useless. Just as the creature stepped forward, an arrow flew through the air and struck it in the shoulder. It let out a high-pitched scream. Another arrow followed. "This way!" A voice shouted from behind the bushes. An old man emerged, holding a bow. "Follow me now." They didn't hesitate. Tunde grabbed Chidi, and they ran after the old man, branches slapping against their faces. After several minutes, they reached a small hut hidden between thick trees. The old man slammed the wooden door shut and bolted it. The forest outside fell silent again. "You boys are lucky," he said, turning to face them. "Very lucky. Who are you?" Tunde asked, panting. "Barbara Joe. I've been watching that tree for years. And now, it has started feeding again." Chidi collapsed onto a mat. "I was inside it. I don't remember everything, but I felt like I was floating." "Trapped." Barbara Joe nodded solemnly. "That tree was once a man. A cursed king. His hunger is endless." Tunde sat down. "It called my name. It said I had been chosen." Barbara Joe stared at him. "Then it wants more than food. It wants your soul." Barbara Joe moved slowly as he poured water into a clay cup. The boys watched him closely. Tunde had so many questions. He was tired, scared, but determined. "What do you mean the tree was a man?" Tunde finally asked. Barbara Joe sat beside them and sighed. "Long ago, there was a wicked king named Oba Oro. He ruled this land with cruelty. He stole from his people, hurt the innocent, and even killed his own brother to stay in power. The gods became angry. They turned him into a tree so he could feel the pain of those he hurt. But something went wrong. Instead of learning his lesson, his spirit became darker. The tree began to feed on fear." Tunde listened in silence. "Every 10 years, the tree must feed. It calls a child, sometimes two. If no one goes, the tree takes someone by force." "Why me?" Tunde asked. "Why my name?" Barbara Joe looked into Tunde's eyes. "Because you carry his blood." Tunde's heart stopped. "I do. Yes. You're a descendant of Oba Oro. That's why the tree woke. It sensed you. It wants to join with you. To live again." Chidi gasped. "Then, it wants to make him the new king." "Yes," Barbara Joe said. "But not a king of people. A king of death." Tunde stood up, fists clenched. "Then we need to stop it. For good." Barbara Joe nodded slowly. "It won't be easy, but I've waited for someone brave enough. I believe that person is you." The next morning, Barbara Joe took the boys to a hidden cave near the edge of the forest. Inside were scrolls, charms, and tools made of bone and iron. He pulled out a scroll wrapped in red cloth. This was written by the first chief of Ilera. It tells of the curse and the only way to end it. He read aloud, "Only one of royal blood may silence the tree. But the tree will tempt him. If he accepts the offer, darkness will rule." Tunde was quiet. "So I have to go back? Alone?" "Yes," Barbara Joe said. "But this time, you go prepared." He handed Tunde a small wooden drum. This was made from the bark of the Iroko tree. It can call the forest spirits. If your heart is pure, they will come. Chidi frowned. "Isn't there another way?" Barbara Joe shook his head. "Only the one it calls can end it." They returned to the hut in silence. That night, Tunde held the drum close. He looked at Chidi. "If I don't come back." "Don't say that." Chidi cut in. "You will, and I'll be right behind you." Tunde smiled faintly. The wind howled outside. The forest was calling. Tunde fell into a deep sleep. In his dream, he stood in a throne room. Shadows moved around him. The walls were made of roots. On a large seat sat a man with a golden crown made of branches. "Oba Oro, come, my son," the king said. "Sit beside me, rule with me." Tunde shook his head. "I don't want power, you already have it. The forest listens to you. With me, you will rule all." Suddenly, the shadows attacked. Tunde screamed. He woke up sweating. Barbara Joe was sitting by the fire. "The tree is trying to trick you. Show it you are stronger." Tunde nodded. The time had come. The next morning, Barbara Joe gave them charms for protection. Tunde wore the drum around his neck. Chidi carved a staff from sacred wood. They walked to the village. Some people cheered. Others stepped back in fear. Baba Musa came forward. You have our prayers, my boy. We believe in you. Tunde nodded. I will not fail. As the sun began to set, they stood before the forest. Tunde took a deep breath. The forest opened like a mouth. Let's finish this, he whispered. Tunde and Chidi stepped into the forest together, with Barbara Joe a few steps behind. The air was heavier than usual. The trees seemed to bend toward them, as if listening. The deeper they went, the more twisted the forest became. Shadows moved on their own. Birds didn't sing. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A branch cracked above them. Then another. Something was coming. From all around, dark creatures began to emerge. They had hollow eyes, long fingers, and bodies like dry bark. They snarled as they crawled toward the boys. Tunde gripped the drum. Now, Barbara Joe nodded. Beat it with your heart, not your hands. Tunde closed his eyes and began to beat the drum gently. Boom, boom, boom. A soft light surrounded him. The creatures hissed and drew back. Then the light grew brighter. Figures began to appear from the trees, tall, glowing spirits made of leaves, smoke, and moonlight. The forest had sent help. The spirits charged at the shadow creatures. Screeches filled the air. Chidi swung his staff to defend himself. One shadow leapt, but Barbara Joe shot it with a blessed arrow. The battle raged. Tunde kept drumming, the rhythm steady and strong. He could feel the forest listening. For the first time, he wasn't afraid. After what felt like forever, the last creature dissolved into dust. The spirits nodded at Tunde and disappeared into the trees. Barbara Joe smiled. You have their blessing now. But Tunde knew it wasn't over. The tree was still waiting. They returned to Barbara Joe's cave to rest. There, the old hunter unrolled an ancient scroll made of animal skin. It smelled like time itself. This is the full prophecy, he said. Tunde and Chidi leaned in as he read. When the cursed blood meets the forest's heart, only a child who chooses peace will break the bark. Beware the golden crown and shadowed throne, for power taken shall never be your own. Tunde felt the words settle into his bones. It's me, he whispered. I'm the cursed blood. Yes, Barbara Joe said. But you can be the end of it too. Tunde stared at the glowing drum. Then I'll make sure I choose peace. Chidi placed a hand on his shoulder. We're with you, no matter what the tree says. The three of them sat in silence, knowing tomorrow might be their last day together. The next morning, they walked back into Ilera. The village was quiet, but as soon as the people saw them, whispers began. Children pointed, women held their babies tighter. Men stepped away from the path. Look at his eyes, one woman said. They shine like moonlight. He's marked by the tree, another whispered. Tunde held his head high. Baba Musa came forward. Is it true? The chief asked. You faced the tree and lived? Yes, Tunde said, and I'm going to end its curse. Tonight. The chief looked uncertain. The last boy who said that disappeared forever. Tunde replied, I'm not that boy. I've seen the tree's heart. Mama Ronke ran forward and hugged her son tightly. Just promise me you'll return. I'll try. Mama, I'll try very hard. That night, the village lit fires and sang songs. The people danced not in joy, but in hope. Tunde danced too, his drum glowing faintly in the firelight. The forest watched silently from beyond the hills. As night deepened, the villagers gathered in the square holding oil lanterns and fire bowls. It was the first time in years anyone had dared to celebrate near the forest. The Festival of Light had once been an annual event, but when the disappearances began, they stopped. Now it returned, and Tunde stood at the center, dressed in white, drum around his neck, eyes filled with purpose. Baba Musa raised a staff. Tonight, we light the darkness. Tonight, we support the boy who speaks to the tree. The crowd cheered. They danced and sang, calling on the old gods and forest spirits. Sparks lit the sky like stars. Tunde closed his eyes and drummed. Slowly, gently, The beat echoed through the hills. The wind changed. In the distance, the forest sighed. Chidi whispered, "It knows we're coming." Tunde opened his eyes. "Good. Let it wait." As the last lantern flickered, Tunde stood alone on the path to the forest. The air was heavy with silence. He took one step, then another. Soon, the forest swallowed him. The trees moved aside for him like servants to a king. He reached Igila. The tree pulsed with power, its roots throbbing. Then it spoke. "My child. Welcome home." Tunde stood firm. "I'm not your child. You carry my blood. You are the heir. Accept my gift. Rule beside me." The bark peeled open, revealing a throne of bones and vines. A golden crown hovered above it. "You will never be hungry. Never be weak. All will bow to you." Tunde's hand trembled. The tree continued. "Say yes, and your village will prosper. Say no, and they will all perish." Tunde clenched his fists. "I choose peace." The tree screamed, roots rising. Tunde raised the drum. The final battle had begun. As the roots of Igila thrashed through the soil, Tunde stood firm. He beat the drum with purpose, each strike like a heartbeat echoing through the night. Boom, boom, boom. The ground shook violently. Branches twisted in the sky like angry serpents. The trees around Igila groaned and bent as if bowing to its rage. Then came the scream, not like a human scream, but a deep, ancient roar that made the birds take flight and the stars blink. From the woods, villagers watching from afar gasped as a shadow wave surged through the forest. Back at the tree, the roots slammed down, knocking Tunde off his feet. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead. Chidi, hidden among the trees with Barbara Joe, saw it happen. "We have to help him." Chidi shouted. "Not yet," Barbara Joe warned. "He must choose his path alone." Tunde struggled to stand. The golden crown hovered again, closer this time, its light beautiful and dangerous. The voice whispered, "Just say yes, and the pain stops." Tunde touched the blood on his forehead. He remembered Sei. He remembered Chidi's frozen face. He remembered Mama Ronke's tears. "Never," he said. He beat the drum again, and the glow returned, brighter than before. From the shadows, Chidi gritted his teeth. He couldn't just watch. He had come too far. He picked up his sacred Iroko staff and ran toward the tree. "Tunde, I'm with you." Tunde turned, relief in his eyes. Chidi raised the staff and swung it at the closest root. It cracked loudly. The tree howled in pain. Spirits began to appear again, glowing beings with eyes like fireflies. They surrounded the boys, forming a circle of light. The tree sent more guardians, twisted creatures made of rot and darkness. Chidi fought him off with his staff, yelling, "You can't have him." Tunde beat the drum faster now. The forest spirits joined the battle, launching beams of light that turned the monsters to ash. "Don't stop," Chidi cried. Tunde nodded, his arms burning but steady. The tree was weakening. They could feel it. The battle was at its peak. Smoke and light danced in the air. Roots flailed. Monsters screamed. Spirits howled. Then a huge shadow moved behind the tree. The final guardian, tall as a house, with horns made of twisted wood and eyes like fire. Barbara Joe stepped forward, bow in hand. "This one is mine," he said. He ran into the clearing, firing blessed arrows that exploded on contact. The guardian roared and charged. Barbara Joe stood his ground. "I will protect them. I was born to end this." The guardian slammed its fist down, but Barbara Joe dodged and struck it in the chest. It howled, weakened, but just as Barbara Joe raised one last arrow, the guardian hit him. The old hunter flew back, crashing against a tree. He didn't move. "No!" Tunde screamed. The spirits surrounded Barbara Joe, their lights flickering softly. He smiled with blood in his teeth. "Finish it, Tunde." Then his eyes closed. Tunde shook with anger. "You took him," he shouted at the tree. The bark split again. Inside was a heart, a dark, pulsing knot of roots. It throbbed with evil. The root of it all, Chidi said. Tunde took a deep breath. He stepped forward, drum in hand. The roots tried to grab him, but the spirits blocked them. Tunde reached the heart and raised the drum one final time. He struck it. Boom. The tree shook. Boom. Cracks spread across the bark. Boom. The heart burst. Light exploded from within. The scream of the tree shook the earth. All around them, the forest began to change. The darkness melted. The roots turned to dust. The crown vanished. The curse was breaking. But just as they thought it was over, a figure stepped from the shadows. Oba Oro. He was not a ghost, but not fully alive. His eyes glowed. His crown returned. You think you can end me? I am forever. He stretched out his hand. Join me, Tunde. You still can. Be the king you were born to be. Tunde looked at him, then at Chidi, then at Barbara Joe's body. He shook his head. I would rather be forgotten than become like you. He raised the drum. Oba Oro snarled. Then you die. He rushed forward. Tunde beat the drum with every bit of his soul. A beam of light shot from it, piercing Oba Oro's chest. He screamed, crumbling into ash. The throne, the tree, the darkness, all of it vanished. Only silence remained, and then, the sun rose.